Yeah, certainly. Hi, everyone. My name's Deanne Medouris.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Medouris.
And then if you just want to also tell us a little about like where you're from, when you graduated, and why you chose URI for pharmacy.
Yeah, perfect. I'm a Rhody through and through. I was born and raised here in Rhode Island, and I graduated from URI College of Pharmacy in 2009.
So I am not from Rhode Island, not born and bred, like the song says. I originally was from Maine, but I came to URI for college at the University of Rhode Island, which I graduated in 2008, and obviously have never left. So.
Yep, we still live here in Rhode Island, and we're not far. We're in North Kingstown.
So what made you want to go to URI specifically for pharmacy?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I've always was interested in medicine and how it worked within the body and how we could help people on a larger scale. So being from New England, there's a handful of schools at the time, and URI just had the full package. It had beautiful campus, great program. It was close for me to get back home if I wanted to on a weekend, but without feeling like obligated to do it every time. So it was good.
Yeah, and mine's kind of similar. Always knew I wanted to do something in the healthcare field as I got older in high school. And pharmacy was attractive just because, some different family members had told me about the opportunity. And at the time there was, a big need for pharmacists as well. So it kind of made sense. And, I had just friends going to URI, and, in-state tuition was kind of nice bonus. And so stayed in Rhode Island close to family. And it did work out, right? Going back home kind of like the sixth year and during the summers was always convenient.
Awesome. So we could get into learning a little bit more about both of you. So from what I've heard, you guys have really interesting roles, pretty like non-traditional pharmacy roles. So if you want to kind of tell us like about like both of your current roles.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because, when I was in pharmacy school, I definitely thought I was going to be like a super clinical, realm and leverage all of like that type of my education. But it does turn out that I don't. So I do encourage everyone to kind of look at all your options and kind of take like a lot of different types of courses, even things you don't think you'll be super interested in or necessarily, be a part of. Because when I think back, it was the classes like biostatistics and things that I didn't necessarily love at the time that I really use now. And so my day-to-day job, and I did start in retail pharmacy for CVS, so followed the traditional path that a lot of retail pharmacists do. When I graduated, I was a staff pharmacist and then a pharmacy manager in a local, CVS store, and started getting into a lot of leadership and management type roles that I really loved using that skill set. And thought about doing like field leadership and really still having that realm, but it was a little bit too far away from me from a clinical type of role and a little bit too far away from any, direct patient contact at all, or having like that really big impact on somebody's health. And so I did find roles up at the CVS corporate office. So again, conveniently in Rhode Island. And my role is in the product development space. So we take ideas that we have to help improve, in my role, patient care, so adherence to medications, and roll out different programs. So we try them in like small versions in stores and kind of test them out and see how they work, how the conversations sound. Does it really help drive and change adherence for the patient based on that conversation the patient has? And then if it does, we figure out how to build our system to allow for that activity to occur on a regular basis across the whole entire country. And I think that's the part that I love the most. It's not that I just have like impact with patients, directly. I don't have that like direct counseling experience anymore, but kind of watching and seeing any product that I do that does impact patients, like really go across 10,000 stores and really impact patients, and seeing that data and impact come back has been really fruitful and exciting. And recently my role has changed to still be product development, but work on our immunizations team. And I can't think of a better way to kind of like use my education in that preventative health space and help vaccinate. And, you know, most recently that's been for the COVID vaccine. So it has been really, really exhilarating and such purpose-driven work to really help get that vaccine to all of our CVS locations across the country, and develop, you know, the operations that happen in those stores to help make sure that it runs smoothly and we get the vaccine out in a really safe way for our patients and have a great experience in our stores while they're doing that. So, you know, and it goes beyond COVID, right? It's for the flu vaccine and shingles and pneumonia and driving those across the organization. So that's my role now.
Awesome. And Michael, a little bit about your role.
I was gonna say that's a tough act to follow. So, like Deanne, I worked in the field with CVS for some of our higher volume stores in Rhode Island. For me right now, I looked at trying to help the stores that I'm in and my colleagues as well as my patients. So there was an opportunity in the corporate office that came up, and it's in the IT side, so a little bit different than where Deanne is, that allows me to actually do that on a broader scale. So not, if you picture just this one store, now I get to do it for all 10,000 stores and, you know, and truly be the voice for our pharmacists and interns and technicians, as well as, you know, helping out with our patients staying adherent to their medication. So what my role is again, on the IT side, but basically what we do is we make sure everything that Deanne and business partners like herself, that they create get tested and vetted through our field partners. So we'll recruit pharmacists and technicians and interns to come in to make sure that everything that they're putting forward not only is safe for the customer, but won't cause a struggle point for our workforce down there. So.
Awesome. That's really interesting. So how did you guys like land into these roles? I know you said like just kind of like an opportunity opened up. Is there anything like any cool story about it maybe or anything?
It's hard. I think actually trying to find a role in the corporate office that fits you can be a challenge. I think, you know, you read job descriptions and you kind of like probably need to talk to people to find out what the role is exactly, because there's so many roles, right? And the cool thing about working at CVS corporate, as I'm sure it is for any other retail corporate organization that there might be opportunities at, is there's an opportunity to work with so many different types of people. So we hire a ton of pharmacists. You know, there's nothing better than having that experience in the stores to really leverage when you're thinking of new ideas or how to implement things, from, you know, really being able to put yourself in their shoes. But we also hire a ton of like MBAs and analysts and data scientists, and you get to work with a lot of different disciplines. And I think I've grown a lot because of that and just learned so much that I never really expected. You know, I think having like, looking back, like if I had more business oriented type classes and things like that, I probably could have got off to a little bit like quicker start, but it's been a whole new kind of world to get used to as well. And then leveraging, you know, the clinical and the pharmacist side of everything too.
Interesting. My story is actually a little bit more direct. It's working in one of my stores. Let me actually backtrack. So my job requires, and everybody else that works for me is expected to still work in a store every so often to kind of stay current with the application and the clinical side of it. So that way, when we're making our recommendations, we're actually knowledgeable and current with what's out there. So when I was still in the stores working as a pharmacist, I had the manager of the team that I'm currently on actually picking up a shift and working side by side with me. And we started talking, and she actually flat out asked me, like, is there anything you could think of right now that you could do to change the system? So I thought about it and ended up giving her an idea, which I went back and forth with her, kind of gave her the reasons why. And she goes, that's a good idea. I'll bring that back. Fast forward to about 10 to 12 months later, I get a phone call from her saying, "Hey, Mike, are you available on this date?" And I said, "Yeah, why? What's up?" She goes, "Well, remember that idea you gave me about 10 months ago? Well, we actually made it a project and we want you to come and test it." So I went up, I tested it out, and it was like awesome, made life a lot easier. And I started thinking after I left that session, I was like, wow, that was really cool. Like, there was a team that came with an idea. They wanted me to test it. They wanted to hear my feedback on what they created and to see if like it's valid and if there's any areas that we can maybe improve upon. I started thinking like, well, I was part of the ideation process. I was part of the finishing process. Like, I want to see what the middle looks like. So I actually started looking into it, and as luck had it, the same team had a role open up, which I happened to apply for, and I got. So
That's awesome. That's actually a really
yeah.
cool story.
Yeah.
Like, it shows like how one idea like could bring you like so far, and now here you are.
Yeah, and that's a great way of saying it. Like, you don't want to limit yourself. There's always somebody out there that's willing to hear you out, and it could be for anything, whether it's a patient changing application, whether it's making your life systematically better. So the best part is just putting it out there. The worst that they can say is no, and that's it. You go on your day. So.
Awesome. That was really cool to hear about. So kind of going off of that, any kind of like prior job experience that you had, or like any additional trainings that either of you have that have kind of like allowed you to really succeed in your current position?
You definitely have some extra.
Yeah, I would say my store experience obviously played a key role. I had many different roles when I was in the field. I worked briefly as an overnight pharmacist. I managed several stores, both high and low volume. I was a staff pharmacist. I floated. So having a high volume, low volume, and different roles really played a key part, because now I can bring that extra expertise to anything that I'm suggesting. When I was up, I actually have some qualifications. So the name of my team is a usability team. It's is basically user experience. It's designing. So I went and became certified in that particular field. So now I have not only my work experience, but I have some design experience that I've learned that I can go in and with these recommendations to make sure that everything I do say is on point.
Yeah, and I don't have any extra certifications or anything fancy, but I've had the opportunity through CVS. They have a ton of different development type programs. And like I said, I have an interest in just leadership and managerial type skills anyway. Even when I was in the field, I was, the majority of my time was spent as a pharmacy manager, and I knew I loved doing, like, leading others. And really developing a strategy and a plan on how to improve, my own store within the four walls. And knew as soon as I came to the corporate office too, I'd want to lead a team here. And so I do lead a team here now and have the opportunity to be part of a lot of different developmental programs, both internal, like that CVS hosts, as well as some like external leadership manager type programs that I've been a part of. And they've all given me so many opportunities. CVS, for example, is a pretty big enterprise. So even though we both work for retail pharmacy and have retail pharmacy background, there's a ton of opportunity to learn about the PBM segment, and in Aetna for the health insurance side of things, Omnicare and the long-term care side of things, Quorum and infusion services, and I could go on, but I've learned a ton just about supply chain and so many different facets of the enterprise that's given me, different viewpoints to leverage, as well. So
that's awesome. So also too, just like kind of like, what do you do like on a daily basis? Like some of like your day-to-day like responsibilities, like what's a typical day kind of look like for each of you?
Yeah, I can go first. We have been working from home, obviously, since COVID kind of happened. It's been about a year. Prior to that, we would, kind of venture up to Woonsocket every morning. And, the majority of the day, even though it's from home, is spent on meetings, kind of like this, similar. We use WebEx all day long. I'm just in a ton of cross collaborative meetings, really trying to strategize and implement, figure out a solution for issues that we hear with patients or the store colleagues, to really try to improve the process. So right now my day-to-day is really spent on COVID vaccines and implementing that. So it's an opportunity to work with our digital .com and app a lot, because we have all patients sign up for appointments, and so it's really designing new things for that application to make signing up for an appointment smooth, as well as the whole in-store experience. So there's just a lot of meetings with a lot of different teams all day long, to make new projects, new enhancements, or like I said, react to problems or issues that we have.
Yeah, my day-to-day is similar. So I lead a team of pharmacists and UX designers, and really my role as their leaders to kind of support them while they're on their individual projects, providing their feedback and help designing them. So I'm there for those instances. On the flip side, we have to test these products out. So I also work in recruitment and gathering the field participants and organizing across the entire company a date, how we would test the scenarios, how we would obtain the feedback. We have an open focus group. So my hands in a lot of cookie pots to just get this organized and off the ground.
Awesome. So out of all the different things that you guys do, what would you say is like your favorite part about what you both do?
Mine is definitely the sessions when we bring in the pharmacists and technicians to test out the products, because the way that we do it is we actually record them. Like we can record their keystrokes, what they're saying, and the screen, and like really break it down and see like where they struggle or what they really enjoy, and then get to talk about it. And then again, that feeling of someone's actually listening to you when you're saying like, this doesn't work well, or I'd like to see this happening, or even the positive where this is fantastic, like I wish we had more like this, is really rewarding at the end of the day, because it's not often that you get to hear or see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and mine is just seeing the fruits of our labor and innovations and ideas come to life. And so the first day that we ever like deploy something, and we usually go to the stores to kind of watch it and make sure it's like working from a technical perspective, and just hear colleague feedback and patient feedback about it. So that is always such an exciting day when you've worked for months, because the product development process, when you're telling basically the coders how to code the system to do what you need it to do, takes some time, right? So it's a long process to really get any idea like really out where it can be, cascaded across the 10,000 stores. So day one, when you're kind of going to see it, is super exciting. And then the other thing is actually data is so rich, right? And I never thought I would care that much about like data, but everything that we deploy, we can kind of see the impact it's having on patients like across all the stores. So anytime we're seeing like, if you take COVID vaccines, like how many we've administered, or you see the positive, feedback coming back, that is always so exciting to really kind of celebrate with the team and watch. That's exciting.
Mm.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't mention this earlier in the interview, but I'm an intern with CVS. So like really like hearing like I know you could leave like feedback on like the surveys that are available. So just even seeing like the positive impact that we made is like one of the most like rewarding parts. Like I love seeing like that we actually like are there for people, and people actually like are appreciative, and we're always very happy to hear like that people had like positive experiences like throughout whenever they come into the pharmacy. So it's always like really rewarding to hear like that positive feedback.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yep.
And then switching gears kind of to URI. So how do both of you feel that URI prepared you for your current roles?
So I kind of said this already. I think that URI did a great job preparing me for my career, especially any experience type of, class that we had. I felt like definitely that hands-on learning experience that URI offered was really, really amazing. And but it's kind of funny too, because I also think that the classes I thought that I was going to like really use in my day to day, looking back, it's kind of the classes that I didn't expect to be part of my day to day that are. So I guess that's kind of really amazing that I look back and I gave like a good breadth of different classes and opportunities to make sure everyone was really well-rounded. Because I think in the end, in pharmacy, like you have so many different opportunities, right? And so not knowing exactly where your career will take you, I think it's really good to have that strong educational background in a lot of different areas.
That's really true. Like if you were to tell me when I graduated, I'd be working in an IT department for, one of the biggest pharmacies in the country, I would have like chuckled at you, but no, it's really true. You don't really know where you're going to go. So like take as much as you can out of the classes. I mean, for me specifically, I took a lot of pharmacoeconomics and a lot of like business related, and kind of, I use some of it, but doesn't even pertain to some of what I'm doing now. So, I mean, there's always room for growth and finding where you need to be. So, but yes, to Deanne's point, I did a really, really good job, just because they provided that broad approach and allowed you the opportunity to kind of just paint your own direction and go.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like because I have a lot of classes, like some are pretty like clinical, like, my standard like core class, stuff like that. But then I have other classes, like right now I'm currently taking like health systems. So I'm learning about like the US healthcare system and like how that works, which is something that like is super important. And like, depending on the field I go into, I mean, it's all healthcare, but certain fields like that could be even more applicable. So like for certain people with different interests, I feel like that's really cool that you get like a super well-rounded education. It's not only focused in like one area of like pharmacy.
Yeah.
100%.
And if I could add, I would say definitely utilize your AFI rotations. Like those are the areas where you can get that exposure to these specific like niches that you wouldn't get in a classroom setting. So that would be one advice I could give that would actually like really help, drive a particular career path for you.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next question.
No,
And my last
perfect.
question, I was gonna ask if you had any like advice for any incoming students or current students like myself and other people.
Well, I already gave my answer. So.
I think my advice is pretty similar. Like just get exposure to as much as possible. Keep connections with people. I find in my role now, like networking is so important. So don't be afraid to reach out to people, and just set up time with them, over coffee chats is what we call them at work, just to kind of like get to meet other people in different departments. But even Mike's story about how he kind of got his role, it's like you got to put yourself out there and you don't know who's going to come back around to be back in your career at any point in time. And so I think just putting yourself out there, like networking with a lot of different people in different roles and trying to learn from them and their experiences is really my biggest piece of advice.